The African Union calls on parties in South Sudan to form a unity government in time. Sudan's government agrees to open access for aid to war-torn areas. And we'll look at how a local painter in Cote d'Ivoire uses art to inspire and break barriers. This is CGTN. Welcome to Africa Live with me, Beatrice Marshall, in Nairobi. The details on those stories in just a moment, but first, Rama Nyang with the day's business headlines. Rama.
Thank you very much, Beatrice. Here's what's coming up in the course of the hour. There's another blow for the UK Prime Minister as Boris Johnson loses a bid to have MPs vote on his deal on Monday. And Zimbabwe starts printing new currency notes designed to ease a crippling cash shortage in the country. We'll have the details on those stories and lots more coming your way in the course of the hour. For now, though, let's start with the latest in current affairs with Beatrice.
Rama, thank you. And let's start off in South Sudan. The African Union body mandated to monitor the implementation of the ongoing peace process, also known as Reconstituted Joint Monitoring and Evaluation Commission, is urging the parties to it to form a unity government as scheduled at the agreement. CGTN's Patrick Oyet reports.
President Salva Kiir and opposition groups are expected to form a new unity government by November 12th. Opposition group led by designated Vice President Riek Machar want a total security sector reforms before a new government is put in place. President Kiir's group says the reforms are a process and can't be completed within the remaining 3 weeks.
We don't anticipate that the remaining problems are so huge to not able South Sudan to move to November 12.
The US says it will re-evaluate its relationship with South Sudan if that deadline is missed. President Salva Kiir and Mr. Machar are meeting in Juba to try and resolve the contentious issues to pave a way for the formation of the new government. One other area of disagreement is on the number of states. Mr. Machar wants the country to have 10 states instead of the current 32.
The government must demonstrate strong leadership to chart a way through these complex and sensitive matters, and all parties must be willing to make concessions so that an inclusive and unified transitional government can be formed on November the 12th.
RJMEC is urging the parties to the peace deal to move the process forward.
There is no doubt that the revitalized peace agreement has yielded dividends in the Republic of South Sudan. Since the signing of the agreement, the permanent ceasefire has held, and there is an overall improvement in the security and humanitarian situation across the country.
But there is concern among many South Sudanese people here that if the two leaders don't agree on a way forward and a unity government is formed without Riek Machar, then the current peace deal could collapse. Patrick Oyet, CGTN, Juba, South Sudan.
Well, let's head to neighboring Sudan, where the government has agreed to open humanitarian access to war-torn areas for the first time in 8 years, as part of a new roadmap to the resumption of peace talks with rebel groups. So far, Sudan's deputy head of the Transitional Military Council, General Mohammed Hamdan, and the chairman of the Sudanese Revolutionary Front have already signed a ceasefire agreement. The agreement was mediated by South Sudanese President Salva Kiir. Sudanese government has recently been holding peace talks with various rebel groups that have been waging a war on Khartoum over what they term as a segregation and marginalization. Others have been pushing to be part of South Sudan. But CGTN's Patrick Oyet has been following Sudan's talks. He's in Juba for us and joins us live. Patrick, now Sudan has agreed to open a humanitarian access to war-torn areas of the country. This is the first time it is doing so in 8 years. How important is this?
Yeah, this is very important, Beatrice. You know, the opposition here had actually said they would not continue with the peace process unless the humanitarian corridors are open, because they are saying the local population in the Nuba Mountains, in Blue Nile and in Darfur are really suffering. aid organizations that are operating there. The government terms them as operating illegally because the government has not given access to those aid organizations. So this is a very important process, taking the peace process forward. Not only that, that is not the only thing they have agreed on. They have also agreed on a roadmap to now move the peace process forward. Like, for example, now they have agreed in principle that now they are ready to go back to the negotiating table. Not only that, they have also agreed for now cessation of hostilities, meaning now they stop attacking each other, not only in the front line, but also in the media. So the peace process can now go forward. Those who are negotiating can negotiate with open mind, open heart, without much worries that fighting is going on in the ground. So yes, the parties here are very happy. We have talked to them. They're saying this, if at all it will hold, then it will now pave a way for Sudan peace process to move forward. President Salva Kiir, who is mediating this process, has said he is optimistic that peace will come to Sudan. And yes.
Well, Patrick, I just want to come back very briefly to the humanitarian access corridor there, because the opening up of that humanitarian access was part of a new roadmap enabling suspended peace talks to resume. What are the key elements are included in that roadmap? If you can just take us through that.
Yeah, the major thing actually here is that now the parties have agreed to, to resume the peace talk. And, a roadmap is a declaration of principle that says we, the parties who are supposed to negotiate peace, we have now agreed to come back to the negotiating table, sit, talk with open mind, open hearts. We are not going to renege. We are not going to be intransigent. Basically, it is just, a declaration of principle. It is a gentleman's agreement. It is not detailed, but it is now, giving opportunity for people to sit. When you're sitting, you know that tomorrow nobody is going to walk out and say, we are walking away. It is done in front of the international community members. It is done in front of, ambassadors around. So, yeah, this is it basically. It is a gentleman's agreement to move the peace process forward, to sit, negotiate, and come up with a solution.
Well, parties have agreed to resume peace talks there. When do you expect, or when do we know if the talks will resume? When are those talks supposed to resume, and what are some of the thorny issues that will be expected to be discussed?
Yeah, the peace talk is expected to resume immediately from Tuesday, because the Sudan's deputy head of the transitional government, the Supreme Council, was here. He's the only person who left actually Juba. The rest of the members are here. The negotiating teams, they are here. They are going to continue with the peace process according to the schedule. And of course, the thorny issues in the Sudan are, of course, all these people who are fighting. Most of them are fighting, complaining of marginalization. This marginalization means no roads, no schools, no hospitals in the regions where they are. Some issues of religion are also there. And if you also remember, some of these opposition groups who are fighting in the Sudan are actually comrades, or were comrades of the ruling party here in South Sudan. So the South Sudanese leaders actually have a good working relationship with them. So the issue of marginalization is one. The issue of religion in some parts of the Sudan, like the Blue Nile, is another issue. Development, also the issue of marginalization in the political arena, because they are saying a few group of people are the ones in power, and power is not actually, people are not given opportunity. People are not given equal opportunity to also, express themselves, provide leadership skills. And they say now, with the ousting of former President Omar al-Bashir, they hope that the new government which is in power is flexible enough, is ready to accommodate. And they also say other issues were that the government that was in place that time, the government of former President Omar al-Bashir, was not ready to listen, because, for example, they say for 8 years, just opening humanitarian access was not possible. So they couldn't sit actually and talk. Because
Patrick Oyet joining us there from Juba in South Sudan, talking about Sudan's peace talks. Let's now head to Botswana, where the country is going to the polls, and the ruling Botswana Democratic Party has never lost an election. But this time around, it is facing a most significant challenge Just over 900,000 registered voters will head to the polls on Wednesday. CGTN's Robert Nagila now takes a closer look at the candidates vying for the top seat.
There are 4 candidates vying for president. Incumbent President Mokgweetsi Masisi of the ruling Botswana Democratic Party, opposition candidate Duma Boko of the opposition coalition, the leader of the newly formed Botswana Patriotic Front, Biki Butale, and Daba Gawalate of the Alliance for Progressives. But it's generally accepted the 2 main candidates are President Masisi and Domo Boko of the Umbrella Democratic Party. Born in 1961, Mokgweetsi is the 5th president of Botswana. He was first elected to parliament in 2009 and served as Minister of Presidential Affairs and Public Administration from 2011 to 2014. He was appointed Education Minister in 2014. He has made corruption a central theme in his campaign and promised salary increases to the military, police and prison workers. His main challenger is Duma Boko, the leader of an opposition coalition, the Umbrella for Democratic Change. UDC is made up of 3 opposition parties, the Botswana National Front, the Botswana Congress Party and the Botswana People's Party. Crucially, Boko has the backing of former President Ian Khama, who has endorsed him after falling out with his predecessor, Mokgweetsi Masisi. If elected, he has promised to create 100,000 jobs, quadruple pensions, double the minimum wage, and increase student allowances by 56%, but has provided no details over how he will fund his programs. The election is seen as a major test over who has more influence between the current and former president. Robert Nagila, CGTN, Nairobi, Kenya.
Well, it's been almost a decade since Libya's former leader, Colonel Muammar Gaddafi, was deposed, hunted down and killed. But is life better for the average citizen in Libya? The following report looks into that.
Libya was once one of Africa's most developed nations, with the highest life expectancy on the continent. But now, the oil-rich nation is beset by one crisis after the next. The west of Libya is ruled by the Government of National Accord, internationally recognized and backed by the United Nations. Meanwhile, the east remains under the control of General Khalifa Haftar and the forces loyal to his self-styled Libyan National Army. These 2 centers of power run parallel institutions and are backed by armed militias. Since April, they've been locked in battle around the capital Tripoli. But the struggle for control in Libya has also turned into a proxy war. In addition to oil interests, rivalries in the Gulf and Europe are playing out in Libya. Amid the chaos, Libya is still a main point of departure for migrants headed for Europe. But not everyone makes it to the shores of the Mediterranean Sea. Thousands are held indefinitely in detention centers. Conditions are brutal, and many are at risk of being caught up in the crossfire around Tripoli. And as stranded migrants continue to be rescued by the Libyan Coast Guard, the cycle only continues. Daniela Pearson, CGTN.
About 90 Libyan members of parliament have been meeting in the Egyptian capital this week. They've been working on a political solution for their divided nation, attempting to form a unity government. They've also announced that a comprehensive parliament meeting will be held in Libya soon in coordination with the United Nations to agree on a roadmap for such a government. CGTN's Adel Mahroui has the details.
To Cairo, stability in Libya is vital for its border security. It's why Egypt has been working for years to unify the Libyan armed forces, to bring tribes closer, and lately to host talks between all members of parliament.
The main purpose was to reach a joint agreement between parliamentarians supporting the government of national accord and those backing Khalifa Haftar. Egypt wants the entire parliament to meet with all sides it represents to form a unity government, which should replace the GNA because it has become part of the conflict now.
After 2 days of meetings, MPs agreed to hold an inclusive parliament meeting in Libya to discuss the unity government. They will coordinate with the UN Libya envoy. This conclusion, however, was not reached peacefully. It has seen critical objections from some MPs who engaged in physical fights with their colleagues. Cameras were not allowed to film the scene.
Libyans are still in the process of learning democracy. They need to learn politics, which they have been deprived from practicing for 40 years. Most of them still prioritize the welfare of their tribes. That's their priorities, and that's the reason why there are many armed militias. What several countries are trying to do now is to work with them so they can shift that loyalty to the nation's well-being.
Of course, General Khalifa Haftar's self-styled Libyan National Army has welcomed the meetings. After all, the meetings which are held in his ally nation, Egypt, could lay the foundation to marginalize his main rival, Fayez al-Sarraj. This is the second parliamentarian meeting Cairo hosts this year. Their main purpose is to re-empower the parliament and reach a Libyan unity government. Adel Mahroui, CGTN, Cairo.
China's President Xi Jinping has sent a congratulatory message to Tunisia's President-elect Kais Saied. The Chinese president extended on behalf of the government and people of China his warmest congratulations to the newly elected president, voicing conviction that Tunisia will continue under his leadership to preserve the country's security and stability and achieve more progress. CGTN's Adnan Chauchi has more.
The Chinese president added that China and Tunisia are bound by traditional friendship. The bilateral relations are currently based on solid mutual trust in several fields.
The Tunisian-Chinese ties are extraordinary and exceptional. The economic partnership has grown considerably in recent years. Chinese companies are invited to invest in all economic and industrial sectors. New authorities will rule in Tunisia in the next 5 years, and China will remain a distinguished partner and friend.
The Tunisian parliament has welcomed the Chinese president's initiative, calling for strengthening ties with Beijing.
After the success of the presidential and legislative elections, Tunisia needs to reinforce its friendship with China. China is well positioned in our country. I personally visited China, and it's clear that authorities in China have a clear vision of the future.
Analysts argue that the success of the Belt and Road Initiative has encouraged the successive governments and presidents in the North African state to sign new deals and contracts with giant Chinese companies.
China is the main actor on the international scene at all levels and the locomotive of international trade and economy. The Belt and Road project has shown that China does not only create jobs and build infrastructure in the world, it also brings together cultures and the people around the planet.
This year marks the 55th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic ties between China and Tunisia.
The Chinese president further reaffirmed interest in expanding the Tunisian-Chinese relations, saying that he looks forward to working with President-elect Kais Saied to foster bilateral cooperation in both people's interest. Adnan Shawishi, CGTN, Tunis.
You're watching Africa Live, still ahead on the program. 55 elephants reportedly die of thirst in Zimbabwe's largest national park. And Côte d'Ivoire hosts a recycling fair to promote waste management.
Each day, there are millions of stories. Each one can open new perspectives, new possibilities. Wherever you look, we are there to see, discover, explore. We put the pieces together to find what really matters to you, all around the world, all around the clock. Our reporters are at home across the globe. From our headquarters in Beijing and production centers in Washington, Nairobi, and London, China Global Television Network. Stories from across the globe, reaching people across the globe. CGTN. See the difference.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
About 55 elephants have reportedly died of thirst in Zimbabwe's largest national park. An ongoing severe drought has dried up waterholes in Hwange National Park. CGTN's Farai Mwakutuya brings us that report.
The state broadcaster reports carcasses of 55 elephants were discovered at the Hwange National Park, located in one of the most arid and drought-prone regions of the country. The Parks and Wildlife Management Authority has previously had to sink boreholes in the game park to supplement water sources. Zimbabwe is facing its worst famine in recent memory, and donors say more than half the country's population will require food aid. Livestock and wildlife have not been spared as water sources and vegetation have been depleted. The situation has been worsened due to the country's unsustainably high elephant population, which is beyond the ecological carrying capacity. Zimbabwe is home to an estimated 84,000 jumbos, at least 30,000 more than the habitat can support. Farai Mwakutuya, CGTN, Harare, Zimbabwe.
Cairo has inaugurated an underground station this weekend. Egypt says it is the biggest underground metro station in the Middle East and Africa. It is an addition to the underground expansion plan that aims to connect Cairo downtown area to the airport by 2020 and then to the new capital. More with CGTN's Adil Mahroui, who's following that report.
The complexity of its multi-story underground structure has forced the metro trains to bypass it until it is completed. 28 meters underground the populous Heliopolis district, the country is celebrating the opening of its newest and biggest metro station. Egypt is more proud that it was built by domestic expertise.
Generally, metro lines are built through a French-Egyptian joint venture, except for all the next phases, which will only be led by Egyptian Arab contractors. This station is one of them. It's a big metro stop. It's 3 levels underground, and it's about 10,000 meters square in area.
The Heliopolis metro station is part of the newest 45-kilometer-long Line 3 project, which will connect downtown Cairo to the airport by 2020. Later, it will lead to the planned Chinese light rail train that will reach the new capital. Heliopolis station has also created space for a 5,000 square meters underground shopping mall, the first in Egypt.
This mall is a great addition to the metro line users and to the residents of Heliopolis. It will serve the great masses who come here every day. To ensure it will be managed properly, we are holding a tender for Egyptian investors. The mall will be an additional revenue source to the underground authority and will help in decreasing its deficit gap.
Egypt's metro operation costs the nation nearly $1 million daily. The government only collects half of that from ticketing. 2.5 million Egyptians use the metro every day. This station has given them access to a vital city center area.
It's great to have this station finally operating. I usually park my car and go to work with the metro to save all the time I waste in the street crowds. With this station, I'll get to work after only 30 minutes.
The new massive station is under the landscape of Heliopolis city center. It has costed $117 million. And by the time Line 3 is completed, more than 3 million Egyptians will be benefiting from the expansion projects of the metro line. Adil Mahroui, CGTN, Cairo.
A former Nigerian diplomat who once served in Hong Kong has condemned the ongoing violent protests being witnessed in the region. A.G. Bala, who once served as Nigeria's Consul General of the Nigerian Consulate General in Hong Kong, says violence cannot be used to resolve any kind of dispute and that the Hong Kong government has the right to take any measures it deems right to stabilize the situation.
What I can say is violence does not solve violence. Whatever it is, as I earlier said, if you have a grievance, there is a way of going about solving or getting a solution to that grievance. Force is not the way out. Because whatever you do, you use force, eventually, no matter how long it will take, you will still come back to the peace table and discuss it. Then, if that is the case, what is the essence of going into violence? Since you know, no matter how long it takes, it may take some years, quite all right, but still eventually it will come back to be solved on the table. So I see this as an impulse.
The first edition of the Recycling Fair has been held in the Ivorian capital, Abidjan. The event seeks to promote eco-citizen actions through recycling of all types of waste. Here's more on that from CGTN's Jen Keo.
These are some of the products made from recycled materials. And the Abidjan Recycling Fair sought to celebrate the initiative and creativity of those behind these items, as it also pushes for management of all kinds of waste through recycling.
Waste is the third source of greenhouse gas emissions in Côte d'Ivoire. It is also a public health concern. In order to meet the internationally required standards of reducing gas emissions by 28%, the waste management sector occupies a very important position in this nation.
This here is a pair of recycled shoes. We picked them up in the trash. As you see, they are already worn and faded. We recycle them, cover them and give them a new and better look. This way, someone else can wear them again.
I work with these objects that I recycle. I go to the trash in the streets to collect things that seem useless to many, such as bags, boxes, and so on. I am a stylist, so I work on these objects and give them added value. It is rare to see this kind of show in Africa, so I came to participate in this show to create a network and display my creations.
In Côte d'Ivoire, the major stakeholders in recycling are mostly from the informal sector. But according to experts, this sector can generate up to $3.7 billion annually and create thousands of jobs if well harnessed.
As I often say, recycling is a goldmine. You see what craftsmen and companies that value waste management can create just by recycling waste. I remain convinced that recycling can effectively solve the problem of youth unemployment in our countries.
Over 1,000 exhibitors participated in the event, which lasted for 3 days. Apart from the display of items, participants and those in attendance were treated to a fashion show which showcased the beauty of recycling and importance of a clean and healthy environment. Jen Keo, CGTN.
And still in Côte d'Ivoire, a disabled street artist is challenging social cultural attitudes through a painting. Adama Traore believes painting heals and boosts morale. He hopes the art he sells in the Ivorian capital will change long-held mindsets that have barred the inclusion of people with special needs in the greater community.
40-year-old Adama Traore is a street artist in Abidjan. Born without arms and legs, he paints not only as a means to earn a living, but he credits the art for keeping him off the dark side of the streets.
When I was a child, my mom sent me to this lady named Marie Odele in a center for the disabled in a neighborhood in Abidjan. We were more than 100 disabled people in the Providence Center. Thanks to her, I learned to paint there. I worked with gouache markers. However, when the lady passed away, I ended up in the streets.
Adama says he faced difficult times in the streets of Abidjan, but he refused to give up on his dream to become an artist.
When the lady passed away in 2002, it was very hard. I had to move and commuting was difficult. When I stopped taxis, they refused to take me because they assumed I would not be able to pay. But thank God, I was sitting near the pharmacy at Troyes in Abu. I would draw and people gave me scraps. Some would throw them at me. When they came to see me, they were surprised at my talent.
From his various paintings, Adama slowly saved up money and used it to open a small art studio. He's now married and keeps on inspiring people every day, including taxi driver Daouda Kone, who picks him from home and drops him to work daily.
Honestly, money doesn't matter. It's courage. When I see him, a man like this, every morning he gets out, spends 4,000 francs back and forth. 4,000 in the morning, 4,000 in the evening. That's too much. Because he's our brother, we reduced the price. We take 3,000 francs in the morning and 3,000 francs in the evening.
Adama says painting is therapeutic and helps to lift spirits.
Painting heals. It boosts morale and cleans the spirit. Painting made me become Traore Adama. If I didn't paint, I don't know what I would do. I can't be a carpenter. I can't be a mason, but I can paint. If I'm just sitting here, people will say, this one is doing nothing, he's a beggar. But when they see me working, they're saying, this one is a worker.
His pieces cost $84 and above. Inspired by his environment, the landscapes, people and culture, Adama hopes to expand his business and use art to break barriers set against people with special needs within his community. Beryl Oro, CGTN.
Well, it's now time to take a look at our business news. Here's Ramanyang with the details. Rama.
Thank you very much, Beatrice. Here's what's coming up in business. The British Prime Minister suffers another blow as he loses a bid to have MPs vote on his deal on Monday. And authorities in Zimbabwe have started printing new currency notes to ease a cash shortage.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
Welcome back. Russia's head of state, Vladimir Putin, has stepped up his push for influence across Africa. And this is just days before he hosts a summit with African leaders. Now, he says that Moscow can offer help without political conditions, unlike what he described as exploitative Western states. The Kremlin says it expects 47 African leaders to converge on the Black Sea resort of Sochi for the October 23rd to 24th event. Moscow is hosting its first Russia-Africa summit as part of an ambitious push for influence and business here in Africa. Putin gave the clearest idea yet of how his pitch to African countries will go later in the week, warning of rising competition over Africa and its resources. He did not name specific countries, though. He just said he was referring to countries that used to be colonial powers on the continent. Elsewhere, the European Commission says the UK must inform the EU Commission of its next Brexit move as soon as possible. The latest comments come after the UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson lost a vote in Parliament over the weekend. He was then forced by the House to seek a short extension to the October 31st exit deadline. Mr Johnson also lost a vote later on Monday that had sought to make parliamentarians vote in a straight yes or no event on his Brexit deal.
I don't have any contacts to announce since the direct contacts that President Juncker had with Prime Minister Boris Johnson in the margins and at the European Council. Since then, we have taken note of the House of Commons vote on Saturday and the UK's request to extend Article 50 until the 31st of January 2020. President Tusk is now consulting leaders of the EU 27 on this, and it is first and foremost for the UK to explain the next steps. We, from our side, will of course follow all the events in London this week very closely. And what I can also add is that the ratification process has been launched on the EU side.
Now we're still on Brexit. France's junior economic minister says the UK could still leave the EU within the next 10 days. She's arguing that general progress has been made, and she's also urging at the same time that French enterprises need to prepare for the possibility of the UK crashing out without a deal.
There
will be a vote in the coming days, so we are waiting for that to see if the members of the British Parliament are in favour or not, bearing in mind that Parliament has asked for a few more days to analyse the agreement. What I take from this is that we have made progress, but we can't rule out the idea that Brexit may happen in 10 days' time, and therefore our main message is for businesses to take this seriously.
Let's get back to Zimbabwe now. The cash-strapped government of the Southern African economy has started printing new banknotes to meet domestic cash demand. According to the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe, the new notes should hit the market in a matter of months. This comes even as the government is looking to ease the country's cash crisis, which has seen what little hard currency, foreign and domestic, is still in circulation, being traded essentially at a premium on the parallel market. At the moment, Zimbabwe is experiencing its worst economic crisis in a decade. Inflation is running at more than 300% by some estimates. Economists, however, warn that the printing of cash could further fuel inflation in the Southern African economy, which is now the second highest in the world after Venezuela. On to East Africa now. Barrick Gold says it has reached a deal to settle a long-running tax dispute between Tanzania and the gold mining company Acacia. Barrick bought Acacia in a $1.2 billion transaction approved by a British court just last month. The tax deal includes payment of $300 million to settle outstanding taxes and other disputes, removing a ban on the export of mineral concentrates and sharing of future economic benefits from the mines on a 50-50 basis. Now, the two parties also agreed to set up a new joint operating company named Twigger Minerals. It's supposed to manage the Bulanyulu, North Mara and Buzwagi mines after a review of the deal by the Tanzanian Attorney General. Under the terms of the agreement, Tanzania's government gets a 16% free carry stake in each of those three mines. Barrick also said that an Africa-focused international dispute resolution framework will be set up as part of this arrangement. For the South, the annual Cape Town International Boat Show is South Africa's premier boating and luxury lifestyle event. And it's just wrapped up at the V&A waterfront. The event attracted a fairly large number of visitors and investors from home and abroad.
The 19th edition of the Cape Town International Boat Show brought together manufacturers, buyers of luxury boats, accessories and marine equipment to gather, share and explore the intricacies of boating and related industries. This year included a special VIP boat cruise experience on the 60-foot luxury Ocean Princess, a display of the world's finest yachts, catamarans and exotic boats, and more than 12 water activities over 3 days.
There's a lot of water sports activities such as kayak canoeing, that type of thing. There's kayak water polo, there's a little Optimist race, which is a small sailing yacht race. So it's a really fun outdoor weekend, which mixes a lot of outdoor activities, but with the luxury and lifestyle that a lot of people would like to enjoy.
South Africa's government sees the event as another opportunity to promote the country's tourism sector.
Officially have opened the show for the people to can start enjoying the yachting and the shipping in the waterfront. This happens on an annual basis, and very excited because this is October month, which is Transport Month. So we really are saying let's showcase who we are as South Africa, because this is one industry which actually a lot of people don't have a lot of information about, and it's high time that we start talking to the people to say let's look at marine industry and say how can we be able to work on the marine industry.
Foreign investors, on the other hand, got the chance to look into other business prospects within the industry.
South Africa is having a good boating technology and good boating market. Really, in Sri Lanka, we are developing our boating industry, especially leisure and fishing. So we are thinking of seeking some opportunities, especially in joint venturing, investments and exporting our products to not only South Africa, but some other countries in South African regions. We are seeking some opportunities.
The 3-day event saw between 10,000 to 12,000 visitors enjoy the display, activities and head out onto the water over the weekend. Alexandria Majala for CGTN.
Now, the world is changing and changing pretty fast. Some products mass-produced today, think of electric vehicles, for instance, weren't actually running around a few years back. But that's just the consumer side. What about the systems that we use to produce and deliver these devices? Here's CGTN's Daniel Bay with a glimpse of what tomorrow's factories might look like.
Shiny robot arms performing the most precise calculations. The 2019 World Intelligent Manufacturing Conference is showing us what the factories of the future might look like. Over 300 entrepreneurs from 12 countries brought their latest products to the Chinese city of Nanjing, including more cutting-edge tech like artificial intelligence, augmented reality, and machine learning.
If you turn the steering wheel, the car will respond in less than 10 milliseconds. That's how responsive it is. And 4G networks can't support this level of speed. Only 5G can. Driverless cars are used mostly for places dangerous for humans, like when there's a fire or an emergency. They can run on set courses. We can also take over the vehicles remotely.
This is the fourth time Nanjing is hosting the conference, and this year's exhibition has attracted more foreign companies than previous years. This year's event also includes the first summit specifically for BRICS countries to share their latest industrial developments. There will also be seminars on groundbreaking areas like 5G technology, the industrial Internet of Things, and more. Experts believe they could be a game changer like no other.
The early promoters of intelligent manufacturing were solution providers and IT companies, and the cost of adopting new technologies was high. Now with new technologies, companies can boost production while reducing labor costs and defective rates in the meantime.
However, not everyone is super positive. There are already worries of potential bubbles in the market forming. Such is the sheer power of these intelligent technologies.
And then actually, the more productive they become, the more efficient they are. They're pumping out more and more of the same thing that's not necessarily the demand in the market. This is a real challenge in the market. That would bring a very significant overcapacity moving down the road.
So, he says, it becomes essential for solution providers to better understand the industry they are serving. The trend is clear at the end of the day. Manufacturing is getting smarter and the world will see more robots moving into the factories of tomorrow. Daniel Bay, CGTN.
We'll leave it there for the time being. I'll be back for Global Business. So, the World Bank has approved Nigeria's request for a $3 billion loan to fund the expansion of its national grid and its improvement. But why does Africa's largest oil producer need to borrow for something so fundamental in the first place? We'll explore that live from Lagos and plenty more at 1800 GMT. See you then. For now, though, back to Beatrice.
Rama, thank you. And we still have more news for you here in the program. Here's what's ahead. 9 nations participate in the 19 African Fashion Awards in Abidjan, Nigeria.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
The just concluded 9th edition African Modeling Ceremony awarded the best models from the continent and the diaspora. The awards was held in the Ivorian capital, Abidjan, celebrating distinguished African beauties with present government officials promising to make the nation a recognized hub of fashion in Africa.
9 countries participated in this year's Africa Modeling Awards, Africa's top beauties. Different categories were judged and awarded, from the most beautiful, enterprising, influential, to those who set the catwalk ablaze with their strut.
This is a big opportunity for the models, not only in Africa but in the entire world. As Africans, to be honored, to be represented. I mean, to be shown out there that we're also doing something. We're not just sleeping. And then I think she's doing great, and I'm really grateful for that.
Aujourd'hui, j'ai ce prix-là. Je peux que dire merci.
Today, I won this prize, and I can only thank the organizers for having trusted me. It encourages me to fight more. And I would also like to give advice to my younger brothers who want to join the profession. They must fight, because nothing is easy on this earth. You have to fight to get what you want. I'm proud of what I got tonight.
Je suis fière de ce que j'ai eu ce soir.
Africa has strengthened its place in the rotation of key fashion events with fashion weeks and international parades in Abidjan, Lagos, Nairobi, Dakar, Yaoundé, Johannesburg, and Accra. Although this is proof that African models are beginning to gain ground on global runways, balance is yet to be achieved.
First, there's need to be a better awareness of the models. It requires a good dynamism and a structuring of the domain. We have already stated that with the association that governs the talent of all these people. But we are still fine-tuning by creating a school of models to give them more tools to truly develop themselves, to support themselves, and to have the life they deserve.
The industry is evolving beyond the average pretty face. One needs more to shine and stand out from the bunch of beauties.
You have to be aggressive to be a model. Nowadays, everyone wants to be a model. It's not enough to be handsome or tall to be a model. You have to have something special. Modeling or fashion is a state of mind. It requires hard work. These are huge walking sessions with the agencies.
According to the Africa Development Bank, the textile and clothing market as a whole already accounts for more than $31 billion in sub-Saharan Africa and is the second largest provider of jobs in developing countries after agriculture, highlighting the fashion industry as an untapped sector on the continent. Beryl Oro, CGTN.
Well, let's now take a look at your sports news. Here's what's ahead. Kenya dominant at the East African Wheelchair Basketball Zone 5 Championship.
How would you create your legend? On the fields, on the tracks, in the arenas of Africa. Were you born to be a